You know, I've gotten so used to wearing the Wayfarers for Tom Cruise reviews at this point because of, I guess, risky business and Mission Impossible movies that we're doing it again. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning was directed by Christopher McQuarrie once again, as well as co-written by him. And this is, for all intents and purposes, the final movie in the franchise. And follows up on the events of Dead Reckoning. Not Dead Reckoning Part 1, just Dead Reckoning now. Which, I will say, it's kind of confusing to my Blu-ray that still says Part 1. The world is on the brink of collapse after the entity seems to have taken over more of the cyberspace, and countries, major countries and powers are on the brink of war. And Ethan Hunt, once again of course played by Tom Cruise, has to spring into action and make something happen before it eventually gets to that point of no return. The Mission Impossible movies are very special to me. I have had so many great experiences watching them, and through thick and thin now for more than 20 years, I can always sort of rely on them as like a huge source of entertainment. I will always come back to these movies, and every single one of them has something so unique and fun to provide that even when there are more flawed entries in the series, my heart just goes out to them. Like, Mission Impossible 2 for many is a very maligned one, but it's also my dad's favorite Mission Impossible movie. And I have a great time watching Mission Impossible 2. I just rewatched it, in fact. And so it'll always have a sort of place in everything for me. And that's one of the things that when I go into a Mission Impossible movie, I feel like that's always something that is there for me. And so going into The Final Reckoning, of course, I'm very excited because I want to see how this series is going to conclude. And having seen the movie, I'm very happy with it. I think this is a very, very satisfying conclusion to this series. Not perfect. I do have a few gripes with it. But overall, by the time I was done with this massive 2-hour, 49-minute venture, I was very happy, and I thought it was a very good conclusion to everything, and a very somber one too. This is a much more serious movie than I was expecting it to be, because the stakes have never been higher, and because so much is happening in here where every move feels like the final move, where if a character decides to do something that's not entirely correct, everything is going to blow up. And because the stakes are raised so much in the movie with every single scene, with every single character, it makes it a very tense watch. Past a certain point. Early on in the movie, the first act or so, it takes a bit to get going because it also wants to connect everything that's been in the previous Mission Impossible movies, and it kind of acts as this, massive culmination to a lot of that. In fact, it goes back to movies that I did not expect them to go back to. Like, there's one thing in here where if you haven't seen Mission Impossible 3 recently, that's something that comes up in here. It's sometimes over expository in nature. So when you're past that, I feel like the movie picks up a lot more. But I will say that first act or so, I even going so far as almost like the first hour, it can feel a little messy and disjointed. But once you're past that, and once Ethan really jumps into action, and once the stakes are even more considerably elevated, the action sequences that you get from that and the performances that you get and the direction that you get are sublime. There are essentially 2 extended set pieces that you get in this movie. One involving an underwater sequence and one involving the plane sequence that you've seen advertised quite a bit. Actually, you've seen both of them advertised quite a bit, but then the plane is on the posters. Both of them are prime examples of how did you do that? Because despite all of this, despite everything that I've seen Tom Cruise do in movies over the years, there are things that happen in The Final Reckoning that I cannot believe actually happened. And you're seeing these sequences on this massive IMAX screen, and I just kept looking at them thinking, this is insane. That this is actively insane. How did nobody die 20 times making this sequence? And that is just a testament to the fact that how they pre-planned these things, how they made them happen, It's absolutely incredible. Some of the most fantastic filmmaking I've seen from an action standpoint is in this movie. It is remarkable work. And everybody in the movie, like in the moments before all of those things or during those things, does a really great job. I mean, Tom Cruise is excellent as Ethan Hunt, once again, and he really brings a very somber, feel to the character this time around, as this idea of Ethan maybe not being able to make everything happen as effectively this time is plaguing him. And as the movie progresses, things are becoming tougher and tougher and more extreme, and you can feel that pressure sort of building within him. And when it comes to the other team members as well, people who he's worked with over the years, like Benji or Luther, Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames, once again, really solid work from them. They're also beginning to feel that. And now you have new members also coming in, like Paris, played by Pom Klementif, and of course Grace, played by Hayley Atwell from the previous movie. And they also have a lot of really great stuff to add to this one. I really, really like their additions to this. And I think Grace in this movie, there are some people who didn't really like Grace in Dead Reckoning. I feel like you'll like her a lot more over here. And when it comes to the supporting characters as well, there's so much going on when it comes to the nuclear threat that seems to be raised. And, you have everyone from the president, Angela Bassett, to her entire cabinet, just, this paranoia is setting in that if certain decisions aren't made, then the world is just about to collapse, and actions that have to be taken to counter the entity. But because the tension is rising, all the decisions have to be made in a very careful and thoughtful way. And again, all of the handling of this is really, really good. The score also is really good in this movie. It's done by Max Aruj and Alfie Godfrey. They take over from Lorne Balfe, who did the last couple of scores. But they are also people who worked with Lorne during those movies. I think this is their first major score. They did a great job. They actually did a very, very good job over here. They adapted a lot of themes from the previous movies, but also really created their own score in the process. And I think they did a fantastic job over here, in fact, in some of the sequences. It looks fantastic as well. I mentioned I saw this in IMAX just now, and the way that it uses IMAX, especially when it comes to those aspect ratio changes, there's an all-timer in here. And when you sort of see it, how they used it to, make a sequence expand, it's wonderful. It's very ingenious stuff. And again, that sense of culmination, which the movie is honing in on, is so well done. Like I said, that first hour can be a little taxing. But even then, when the going gets tough and when you're locked in with Ethan in those more tense sequences, you're just in, it's one of those things where even despite the fact that the first hour can be all over the place at times, when it really has to, pick up the pace and when it really has to become a lot more, engaged in how to deal with this threat, I think they nailed it. And I'm so glad that, by the end of it, you get a really solid experience. The final act of this movie is tremendous filmmaking, really. So by the end of it, I'm quite satisfied with the final reckoning overall. I can see some people complaining perhaps about the fact that, there's a lot of connections that are made to previous movies that you don't really need to make those connections. I will say there is one connection which I thought was a little far. There's this one character says something and I said, okay, I guess, why not? But it was one of those things where it was you want to tie into everything, but you don't necessarily have to tie into everything. But despite that, I was very happy, like I said, with the final reckoning overall, and hope you guys go check it out this weekend. I'm going to give Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning an 8.5 out of 10. Yes, that seems a little lower than a few of the other ones that I've watched, like Fallout. It's not quite as high as that. I still think that is the zenith of the franchise, the top of it all, as good as it gets. This, perhaps not among my, top shelf Mission Impossible movies, but still pretty high up. I mean, I still think it's a really, really solid watch. So guys, let me know what you guys think of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed this review. So thank you very much as always for watching. And as always, please do subscribe if you haven't yet. And I'll see you guys at the movies. There we go.